Well, I want to welcome everyone back to Get Off My Chest. I do apologize for my 2 month long break from making videos. I'm just have been dealing with a lot. I've been working, obviously, and school just started back up for me, so I've been trying to balance that out a little bit. But I'm glad to be making videos again, and I just did want to let you know that our next Discourse with the Common Man will be in October. Um, Likely what will be happening is we will be talking about election predictions, how everything goes down. So it should be an exciting discussion. Please let me know if you want to tune in, and we should have some fun with that. But today, as we all know, we're gonna do something a little more fun today. We are uh, just 6 days out, or really 4 days out from the first NFL game of the season. And so I am very excited about that. Some new hope for me personally, as I'll get to in a minute. But I did want to offer my predictions in um, to the spectrum here. So, without further ado, I'm going to do divisional predictions as well as playoff predictions, who I think is going to win Super Bowl 55. So, with that said, we'll start with the AFC. So, we'll start with the AFC East. This one was it's the first time in a while that this division is highly unpredictable, right? You know, people are believing that finally the 2 decade long dynasty of the Patriots has finally come to an end, and so this division could be potentially up in arms. But I think that even with the signing of Cam Newton, that might not be enough for New England to hold over. So I think that this year that Buffalo actually wins that division. Buffalo will win the AFC East with a record of 11-5. New England will be right behind them with 10-6. They'll win their divisional games. They'll probably lose one and win one against Buffalo. But I just don't think that, and a lot of players on New England's squad have opted out due to coronavirus concerns. So there's some gaps there. I think that Buffalo, with their key acquisitions in the offseason, like Stephon Diggs, um, that'll help them carry over and win the division. So they win that with a record of 11-5. New England's in second at 10-6. I have Miami at 5-11. I think Tua helps them out a little bit. Um, Even if he doesn't start, he's not going to start out the season as the starter, but he will, I think, rise into that position very well, especially in the long term. But for right now, they'll be around 5-11, 6-10, I believe. And then I have the Jets actually taking a step back at 4-12, just because the Jets are always kind of unpredictable when it comes to how bad they are, whether that be through doing 7-9 like they did last year, which isn't terrible. And they had 4-12 the year before. So I think it's going to be kind of a back and forth thing for a while. So with some structurally unsound front office work by the Jets, I don't think that they're going to be anywhere close to that division. So I think they'll finish 4-12. And then in the AFC North, I have the Baltimore Ravens winning the division once again, but it's not as close. They have a record of 13-3, whereas last year was 14-2. They were the number one seed in the AFC, but the Ravens will win the AFC North again this year. And right behind them, I have on a bounce back year the Steelers. The Steelers weren't great last year, but that was primarily due to everyone got hurt in like the first 2 weeks of the season. So I think that now that the Steelers are healthy, if they stay healthy throughout the year, they are going to be able to maintain some form of stability throughout the year, get back to an over 500 record for the first time in a couple years, and close out the season and potentially earn a playoff spot. Then I have Cleveland getting to 500, which is kind of a high expectation for us NFL fans for the Browns to get to a 500 record for the first time in what seems like forever. And then I have Cincinnati at 5-11. They were kind of atrocious last year. They earned the number one pick at I think 2-14. So Joe Burrow gets some 3 more wins this year, but I don't think they'll be as good. I think they're still in the rebuilding process. That could change obviously within the next 2 or 3 years. So we'll see how that goes. And then this is one of the toughest one for me in the AFC to call was the AFC South. Because it has been last year was highly unpredictable. We saw Jacksonville just kind of fall flat on their faces. Andrew Luck obviously retired right before the season started with Indianapolis. Houston wasn't as great as they were, and then Tennessee was the dark horse in that division that actually made it to the conference championship, which no one was really predicting. And so, in a tiebreaker, I have Tennessee winning the AFC South at 10-6, able to beat out Houston, who also has a record of 10-6. I think the Titans would win due to a divisional tiebreaker. And then I have Indianapolis at 7-9. They won't be as good this year. And then I have Jacksonville at 4-12. So we'll see how that one goes. I think that Jacksonville is just going to be kind of back in the basement, if you will, for the time being. And then probably this was the easiest one for me to call, without a doubt, was the AFC West. The Chiefs, with a record of 13-3, will continue dominance in their division and won their third division title, I believe, in 3 years. It might be longer than that. I'm not quite sure. And then I have Denver actually making a little bit of a hop with a record of 8-8. And then I have Las Vegas, which is kind of weird to say. Honestly, they're still the Raiders. Most people will still call them the Oakland Raiders, at least for this year. They'll finish with 6-10. This will be their third year with Gruden under 500. So we'll see how this goes, and we'll see. And then the Chargers at 5-11. I don't think they're going to be that good this year, just because they're still trying to get used to how Justin Herbert, or it's not just, no, it is Justin Herbert, the Oregon product, how he pans out with their offense and how their defense plays. So we'll see how that goes. But I have the Chargers at 5-11. So, and then now we move on to the NFC. So in the NFC East, I'm a little biased, but I have the Cowboys winning at 10-6. Obviously, I was not thrilled with how the season ended last year with Dallas, particularly those last few games where we won 1 out of 5 or something like that, and we shouldn't have. And obviously, losing to the Jets, some of those games where we should have won. That was a backbreaker, I think, for the Cowboys. But they were able to get a couple of key acquisitions in the offseason, particularly Everson Griffin. He's a good veteran add. And they added Brandon Carr not too long ago as well, but he's going to be on the practice squad. And obviously, the coaching change with Mike McCarthy, I think, was a very good move. We'll see how it pans out, but I have Dallas going 10-6 in McCarthy's first year, besting Philadelphia at 9-7, just because a lot of their success rides on their ability, like Pittsburgh, their ability to stay healthy, particularly Carson Wentz's ability to stay healthy. Because, they made it to the playoffs last year. Carson Wentz got all the way through to the divisional game against Seattle. Pow, there goes his knee, and that was it, right? So I think that, Philadelphia, if they can stay healthy, they'll manage a 500 record. It'll come down to Dallas and Philadelphia again for sure. And then I have the Giants in third with a record of 6-10. They'll do a little bit better this year than they did last year. I think Daniel Jones is still trying to get into his groove there. And, I think he'll do well with Saquon once they kind of meld together. This is only Jones's second year. It's Barkley's third. But we'll see. We'll kind of see. This will be the make or break year to see how that chemistry develops or breaks. And then I have Washington at 4-12. They're just, I love Alex Smith. Respect him for coming as far as he has. But, I think, him making the roster either says a lot about him or it just says a lot about how desperate Washington is for a, solid starting quarterback option. And that's going to put them, they're falling apart, really. Their organizational structure is not great right now, particularly, within, Dan Snyder still at the helm, and finally, maybe a little bit of change going on there. But I don't think Washington, team-wise, is going to do very well this year. They'll sit at 4-12. And then I have in the North, I have Minnesota actually stealing this one from, or taking this one from the Packers. The Packers won last year. I think that, with Minnesota, you're always kind of unpredictable. They always do well in the regular season, especially they have in the past few years, but just kind of stop short of the playoffs. And so I think that's important because the Vikings can be consistent enough. If they are consistent enough, they will, with their strong defense, they should be able to take the division title. And how defense heavy the NFC North is. So I think that the Vikings at 11-5 will win the division. Green Bay drops a few games down to 10-6. They'll still play well. I think we're hitting the last 2 years of Aaron Rodgers' career at this point. Just because I don't think that he's going to be around a whole lot longer, and the Packers have already started building around him, or building the next guy up for him. So they'll finish at 10-6. They will finish second in that division, and then I have Chicago at 8-8, doing a little bit better than last year. The quarterback situation is still tough because you've got a meh quarterback in Mitch Trubisky and a meh quarterback unless it's in the playoffs in Nick Foles, right? So I think that Chicago, still with their defense, can win games. So I think that 8-8 would be a good record for them. At least this year, it's a big step up. And then Detroit, God bless Detroit, right? 5-11. I feel like because at this point, they're just they're still in a chaotic free fall, I think, and they haven't gotten a foothold in their division in quite some time. And that, it still depends on Matt Stafford a lot, especially in that regard. So the Vikings win the NFC North, then it's Green Bay in second, Chicago in third, and Detroit in fourth. And then the NFC South is also going to be kind of interesting, just because there were some particular ads. By that I mean Tom Brady going to Tampa Bay with Bruce Arians, and then them adding several key spots like Rob Gronkowski and Leonard Fournette on offense. The big question will be, does the defense hold up? And my answer right now is no. So that's why in New Orleans is going to be playing. This will be likely their last year for contention with Drew Brees. So he will. I think the Saints will win the division again. They'll go 11-5 this year, and then it'll be Tampa Bay at 9-7, and then I have the Falcons at 6-10. They'll do better this year. And then the Panthers will take a pretty big step back just because the loss of Cam Newton, A, and B, they've had several Luke Olson left as well, or Greg Olson, excuse me, and then Luke Kuechly retired. So I think there's a lot of question marks with the Panthers right now that have yet to be answered. So I think they're going to go 5-11 this year, but we'll see how it goes. And then another tough division for me to call was the NFC West, because it's always tighter than it should be. They've had 3 different teams win the division title in 3 different years. We had Seattle win one year, we had Los Angeles win, and then we had San Francisco. I believe that's correct. And then we had Arizona. Each of the 4 divisional teams have won once, I think, in the last 5 years, at least once in the last 5 years. So, but I think that San Francisco plays with a vengeance this year. They were obviously not particularly pleased with how things panned out in the Super Bowl. They had the 10-point lead going into the final 10 minutes of the fourth quarter, and they couldn't close it out. Kansas City wins. So I think that San Francisco plays with a vengeance and finishes 13-3 on the year. Seattle is next in line. They go 10-6. It'll just kind of depend on what Russell Wilson is able to do. I think the better question would be what Russell Wilson won't be able to do. But I think they'll finish 10-6. They'll be consistent on offense and pretty good on defense still. So I think that'll be a big factor. And then I'll have the Rams at 9-7 and finishing third. Just because, there's still some question marks there. They lost some of their pieces. And, they didn't do as well last year. They kind of got their butts handed to them in several key games. So I think that'll be an issue. Then the Cardinals will do better this year as well. I think, Kyler Murray's, once he finds his groove, he'll bring the Cardinals back. We're kind of hitting the swan song years of Larry Fitzgerald as well. So they will finish 8-8. So we won't have a under 500 team, I believe, in the NFC West this year. But San Francisco wins that division. So my divisional winners in the AFC are the Bills, the Ravens, the Titans, and the Chiefs. And then in the NFC, I have the Cowboys, the Vikings, the Saints, and the 49ers. So with that in mind, we're going to do some playoff predicting here. I drew up a bracket, and I did this in accordance with how they're structuring the playoffs this year, and only one team gets the bye in the first round. So it kind of works like this: the 4 will play the 5, the 3 will play the 6, the 2 will play the 7, and most of that I did based off of record. So in the AFC, the number 4 seed was Tennessee. And so they would play the number 5 seed with who would be the Steelers at 10-6. And so I believe, and then you'd have the Bills at the 3 spot who won the NFC or the AFC East. And then the Patriots who are in the wild card spot. And then the Ravens and the Texans would play as well. So out of those teams, the Chiefs would actually, through a tiebreaker, I believe, get the first round bye as well. So the Chiefs get the first round bye. It's Titans, Steelers, Bills, Patriots, Ravens, and Texans. So we'll start with Ravens, Texans. I think that the Texans are not going to do well in the playoffs. They haven't had a lot of stability in the playoffs the past couple of years. They've always had leads and they tend to blow them. So I think that Baltimore wins that one pretty easily. So Baltimore advances to the divisional round. And then with the Bills and the Patriots, the Bills get their vengeance on their old rival. They'll win another game against them. Buffalo advances to the divisional round to play Baltimore. And then the Titans and the Steelers, I think actually that Pittsburgh would be able to advance, just kind of depending on how, like again, on how, if they stay healthy, how that works out. So in the divisional round, you have Kansas City, Pittsburgh, Buffalo, and Baltimore. So I have the Chiefs knocking off the Steelers. I think that'll be a close game. It'll be a fun game to watch for sure if that pans out. And then I have Buffalo and Baltimore, which would also be an interesting game. But I think that Baltimore would end up upending Buffalo. And so it's the Chiefs and the Ravens who've played the last couple of years. The Chiefs get the upper hand in the conference championship, and they are representing the AFC in Super Bowl 55. Now on the NFC side, the seeding goes as follows. San Francisco earns the number 1 seed by quite a long shot, honestly. And then the number 2 seed is Minnesota. And then the number 3 seed would be New Orleans. The 4th seed would be Dallas. The 5 seed would be Seattle. The 6th seed would be Green Bay. And then the 7th seed would be Philadelphia. So let's start with Minnesota and Philadelphia. This is the rematch of the conference championship game in 2018. Philadelphia won that one by a merry mile. So, but I think that the Vikings having home field advantage would be able to take care of business there. And as a result, Minnesota knocks off Philadelphia in the first round. With New Orleans and Green Bay, I think, like I said, I think New Orleans will be playing like they don't have as much to lose, particularly because, like we're entering the last few years of Drew Brees, and he might be contemplating retirement depending on what happens this year. So I think that the Saints and the Packers will play hard, but I think New Orleans wins that matchup. So they will advance to the divisional round. And then with the Cowboys and the Seahawks, they've met a few times in the playoffs. They'll meet in the regular season this year. But I think that the Cowboys will get the upper hand, and they will advance to the divisional round, and they will face San Francisco. So now we go to the divisional round with the 49ers and the Cowboys, age-old rivalry between the two, dating back to the 1980s, particularly both when teams were both very good. But San Francisco wins that one. I think it'll be close, but San Francisco will pull a victory away from Dallas. So they advance to the conference championship game. And then the Saints and the Vikings, the Saints feel like they have been bested by the referees a couple times, particularly against Minnesota. So I think that the Saints will learn from their mistakes and they will win that game. They advance to play San Francisco in the championship. Now, this one might get a little bit interesting that I have the Saints knocking off the 49ers to win the NFC. Just because, again, the Saints won't have anything to lose and the 49ers still have, I think the 49ers will have the endurance to play hard, but I don't know if they'll be able to compact as a team and knock out Drew Brees, but we'll see. But I think that the Saints will win, and so that leaves the Saints and the Chiefs in Super Bowl 55. And in a close affair, I have the Kansas City Chiefs winning their second Super Bowl in consecutive years. So I think that about wraps up my predictions. Let me know what you think in the comments. There are a few controversial picks in here. Please let me know. Don't forget to share, like, and subscribe. And I will see you all in our next video. God bless, guys.